Hey there, welcome to Charting Toward Intimacy, where we're expanding the natural family planning conversation. I'm your host, Ellen Holloway. In this week's episode, we are talking about charting before and after you get married and really honing in on how important it is to start charting before you get married. So this episode is for all of you out there who are not yet married, and it's also for all of you out there who know someone who's not yet married. So it's for everybody. Please feel free to share this episode after you listen to it to anybody who you think would benefit. All right, we are welcoming Julie Linder to the podcast. Julie, I am very excited to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
Can you start by giving us just a little introduction to yourself and what you do?
Sure. I am a registered nurse. I've been a nurse for about 10 years, and I recently got married, so that's exciting. But I also am a teacher of the Creighton Model system. And I've been doing that since 2015.
Awesome. That is awesome. So in today's episode, we are talking about charting before and after you get married. So it's very convenient that you recently got married, which is why I asked you to be my guest on this podcast. So can you start by telling us a little bit about your experience charting before you got married?
Yeah, so I started first primarily as a patient. So I had a physician who happened to be a Creighton Model physician, trained as a medical practitioner. So, which was fantastic because I didn't know anything about the Creighton Model system. I grew up Catholic. I knew I had vaguely heard of NFP, but really, you don't get a lot of education on any type of those.
Sadly,
those types
no.
of things.
We're trying to fix that.
Exactly. So, I just had all sorts of problems since I was a teenager, just excruciating cramps and super heavy bleeding and just terrible PMS where I get insomnia and not sleep for an entire week and just really horrible. And I had been to so many different doctors to try to figure out what was going on, and I didn't get any answers at all. I mean, they did a few tests to make sure I didn't have cancer or anything really serious. But then other than that, their solution was, well, you can either go on the oral contraceptive pill or get a hysterectomy. And I'm a teenager.
You're like, neither of those sound very good.
I know. So, for lack of better options, I went on the oral contraceptive pill and was on that for many years and did not feel good on it at all. Just gained a bunch of weight, felt really, just my mood was really off and didn't tolerate it well. But the options were that or, crippling pain and bleeding all the time. And because my periods would last for, if I let it go, like 2 months straight.
Wow.
It was really highly dysfunctional. And I was just astonished that nobody cared enough to try to figure out why. No doctors were willing to just dig in a little deeper and figure out what was going on. But I wasn't trying to get pregnant, so it wasn't a priority for them. Mm-hmm. They're just like, well, let's just mask the symptoms for now. So when I found this particular physician, he suggested, he told me about the Creighton Model system and naprotechnology and suggested I learn how to chart. And I was willing to try anything at that point. So I did. And I figured, this is good knowledge anyway, because, it was something that if I did get married, I knew that that's how I wanted to live my marriage, to live chastity within my marriage. So it was something I wanted to do anyway. And I figured, well, it'll be good knowledge. And if I can try to learn something about my health, great. And it was an amazing experience. It was so empowering to learn, to be able to understand what was going on with my body and just be able to interpret the different symptoms. And even though initially there was no medical treatment, it was just learning how to chart, just knowing what was happening and when I was going to have PMS, like be able to anticipate when it was coming and kind of mentally prepare for it, it made such a difference.
Oh my gosh, I can just imagine like, and I love that you were able to, find this out before you were trying to get pregnant, because I think had you not been able to find this physician, like, you would have continued on the birth control until some point in the future, or I don't know, maybe right now. I don't know when you're what your family planning intentions are. But and then at that point, then there would be a bunch of things to figure out. And it would be probably more difficult because I don't know how long at that point you would have been on the pill, masking symptoms of things that can be mitigated.
That's so true, because the pill doesn't treat anything. It literally just masks symptoms. So there's still an underlying disease process that's being allowed to continue. And that's really the travesty in what we're calling, in popular media calls women's health, but doesn't have anything to do with women's health. Mm-hmm. It's not getting to the root cause. It's not healing women. So that, yeah, you're exactly right. It made all the difference in the world.
Yeah. And just to be able to, I'm just going to repeat myself here because I just think it's so important just to be able to figure out those health issues before the point of marriage and before the point of really even using natural family planning. Because the way that we define natural family planning on this podcast is that is the use of a fertility awareness-based method alongside discernment and prayer with your spouse on your family size. So before you even get to the natural family planning part, if you can make sure that you're healthy and things are running, relatively normally within a normal range, that's what we're looking for.
Right.
Just what a blessing to be able to bring into your marriage, because marriage is a cross. Using natural family planning in a marriage can be very difficult. And if you're also trying to figure out some underlying health issues at the same time, then that's a lot.
It's just compounding, one thing upon another. Exactly. Yeah, that's so true.
Exactly. So how long have you been married now?
9 months.
That's awesome. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And what would you say is like the biggest difference between charting before you're married and now charting after you've been married for 9 months now?
I've been charting for 10 years. So I had a huge amount of experience before I got married.
Yeah.
And was obviously very comfortable with the method, very comfortable with how to understand my fertility, knowing what days were fertile and infertile. But, until you actually are married and are using it as a method of family planning, it's all in theory a bit, So even though I had a very high level of confidence going into it and going into marriage, there's still the element of, well, I was actually excited. I was like, great, now I get to put this, now I really get to put it to the test. This is fantastic, because I've been teaching for many years now as well, teaching married couples before I was married, often teaching women who were struggling with infertility or managing, medical issues. Since I'm a nurse, that's kind of what I focused on. But I did teach couples who were just simply using the method as a method of family planning as well. So it was kind of nice to be able to have, I guess, that in common with my clients now. Now I can say, I've used it for this reason and it works.
Definitely. Oh my gosh, I can see that. Well, and you likely obviously would have a lot more experience than a typical NF user as an instructor in a specific method. But how you talked on it a little bit of just like being able to walk into your marriage with that confidence. How was that? And in comparison, do you feel like you had a lot more confidence than, say, some couples that you have taught that maybe just learned a couple months before they were married, or maybe learned while they were already married and trying to avoid pregnancy at the same time?
Yeah. I mean, there's a kind of a world of difference between each of those scenarios.
Yes. There really is.
And I mean, just with my experience, my own personal experience and my experience as a teacher, if a couple has, really strong reasons that they want to avoid pregnancy for a certain amount of time for a variety of different reasons, it can be very nerve-wracking. And I meet with many couples who are super anxious, just so anxious, almost afraid to be intimate together because they just, for one reason or another, now is not the time for them to achieve a pregnancy. So it's such a beautiful, and one of the things why I love teaching so much is it's just a beautiful experience to witness the transformation in them when they can be together intimately in freedom and not have that fear between them. And that's just miraculous, really. It's so freeing for them. You can just see a weight lifted in them and just the joy that they can express their love for one another without the fear in between.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I, from my own personal experience, I started learning a method while already married. And so there was so much just not confidence. I don't know. What is the opposite of confidence? Fear a little bit. Because it definitely was not, we had discerned it was not the time to add another member of our family. And so we're trying to navigate this. And on top of that, I didn't have an instructor, which please get an instructor. I don't care what method you learn, get an instructor.
Yeah, for sure. Because your body can throw some curveballs at you sometimes, especially when you're stressed trying to learn a new system, especially if you're trying to learn it is like as a newlywed or as, already a married couple who's trying to use the system while you're learning it. There's so many variables, but yeah, you need some support.
Exactly. Well, and what it really resulted in us was kind of that fear of coming together as husband and wife. And so there was way more abstinence than was necessary. Right. And so when you can come into your marriage with a couple of months or a couple of years or a decade, if you're Julie, of charting experience, that confidence can just really allow your union as husband and wife to actually be free, total, faithful, and fruitful, which is, vastly important. We've talked a little bit about that on the podcast before. That's from Theology of the Body, JP2's Theology of the Body. But I love what you were saying there about just that fear, the difference of the fear and the confidence. That's huge.
Yeah. And even just, I think the ideal maybe is to have at least 4 months of learning before you get married. If someone has the option and has the choice, I think that at least for the Creighton Model system, that gives us plenty of time to really get the basics down, where you feel really confident about your observations, where you have a strong observational habit, which is, of course, very important because your chart is only as accurate as the data you're putting into it. So.
Very true.
So the more, just giving yourself time to build those habits and really just focus on building the habits and learning what your body is telling you and how to interpret it before you have the stress of having to add, the factor of now you're actually using it either to avoid or achieve.
Right. To be able to learn with no pressure of needing to try to avoid or achieve is a beautiful gift. And I would even say, Julie, I think 4 months isn't like an absolute minimum.
Yes.
I think you should really shoot for like 6 to 12 months would be incredible. If you could have that much practice, that much practice. And it would just boost your confidence so much more in the method and just your confidence in yourself in charting. Cause I love what you said, Julie, like your chart is only as good as the data you put into it. And when you're first learning, this is all so new. It's really new to look at your mucus sign or to look at or to measure your basal body temperature every single morning, whatever method you're using, whatever signs it requires. It's new to do that. So you have to add that into your routine.
Yeah. And you're still missing a lot of observations because you're sleeping in, or you're,
exactly.
you go to the bathroom and you didn't check, and it's not super accurate in the beginning, which again, if you're using it at the same time as a method of family planning, if you're married and actually using the system in that way while you're trying to learn, that's where more anxiety comes, and it inhibits the learning process really, because you're not free to just learn. You have that extra anxiety, which doesn't help with as far as memory acquisition and all of that.
Oh, definitely. Well, and I think if you throw on top of there, the 60 days or so leading up to a wedding are probably pretty stressful. And
yes, and your chart can do crazy things during that time too. So it's the further out from that you can get some accurate cycles, the better.
Exactly. Yeah. Stress can just make your chart totally wonky and very difficult to read.
For sure.
Oh my goodness. So what suggestions would you have for someone who wants to practice NFP while married, but is not yet married?
Yeah, I mean, I think whether or not, if there's a potential spouse, in the picture, learning together, I think is awesome. Because that was maybe one small challenge, I guess, with the difference between learning the system together and me having known NFP prior to meeting my husband. It's nice if you can learn it together, because with the couples that I teach, the guys are really involved. I really get them involved in understanding the chart and how to read the chart, because there is valuable information on there. They're going to know exactly when she's got PMS and she needs a little more me time, or, it really can help a marriage a lot if a guy knows how to read the chart.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Well, and just being able to look ahead, and as a man, not as a man, I'm a woman. Speaking if I was a man, I guess, but being able to look ahead and say, okay, this, we're probably about at the end of the cycle, and my wife's probably feeling a little bit down. Maybe I could do an extra chore for her and give her a little bit of extra time. What a beautiful gift that you could give to your spouse. Because
for sure,
a lot of the charting is on the woman, because we are looking at the signs that are coming from her body, because
exactly,
the woman's cycle has cyclical fertility. The man is sitting over there fertile all the time.
Right.
We don't need to chart the man's cycle, because there isn't a cycle to chart. It's just a straight line.
Always there.
But as a husband, if you can really involve yourself in that process, that is just such a beautiful gift, so that the burden doesn't just always feel like it's sitting on the wife. And I think the worst thing that can result in is just sort of this gatekeeper role of the wife being like, nope, can't have sex, gates closed or gates open. Oof.
Right. It can be an awkward position for both when there's that dynamic there. So it's really nice. And I, like I said, I work with a lot of infertility couples too, who are really struggling to achieve, which can be very stressful. So, when the husband sees okay, we're entering into the fertile period, to do some extra romantic things and make it special, because it can become almost a chore for couples who are really trying to achieve, they're like, okay, whether you want to or not, now's the time. So,
right. Well, I've heard these honestly kind of horror stories of couples who want to achieve pregnancy, and they go to their doctor and they're like, okay, well, what do we do? And the doctor takes out a calendar and just marks every other day. And it's like, here, have sex every other day. That just sounds like a chore chart.
Exactly. Right. It definitely takes the romance out of it, for sure.
Exactly. And the spousal union is a beautiful gift. that is given to us. And also a gift in that we are giving ourselves over to our spouse. And so, it should never be this checkbox. It should never be this chore. I'm really getting into a rant over here. Maybe I should calm myself down.
It's true though. It is very true. And it's something that I think couples who are really wanting to achieve and really trying to have fertility focused intercourse, the charting and knowing where they are in the cycle, not only does it, help them focus on the most fertile days, but, like I said, the husband then can kind of step up, get a little bit more involved, do some extra romantic things and, really, it just really, a husband knowing how to read the chart in so many ways, just really adds to that union between them because he can be so much more involved.
Absolutely. What else? What other suggestions do you have for someone who wants to practice NFP while married, but maybe is not yet married?
Yeah, I'd say don't wait. I mean, there's so many. I've had couples who are just single women. They weren't in a relationship, and they're like, "Well, I'll just wait. I'll just wait until I'm married. I don't need it now. It's what's the point?" It's like I said, it's so empowering just as a woman understanding your body. I mean, I've had women who, have several children already. They've decided to start learning, maybe for premenopause type of management. And they're like, that's how it works. That's what that means. And I'm like, how did you have 5 kids? But I mean, they're like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have known this, when I was 20, when I was 30.
Oh my gosh. It's like the anthem of NFP instructors. Why didn't I know this sooner? I wish I could have known this when I was 15, when I was 20. Like, I totally agree. Don't wait.
There's no reason to wait. Yeah. It's an amazing thing. It really makes you appreciate just kind of the magnificence of how we're created. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that when you're like doubled over with cramps and but that's the other thing too. There's so much we can do for those symptoms. Women a lot of times suffer with symptoms silently. And 1, they may not know it's abnormal. 2, they may not know there's anything that can be done about it because a lot of even OBGYNs they don't know how to treat. They don't know that there's options, really simple things, lifestyle changes, little things, some vitamins and supplements that can make a world of difference and massively improve a woman's quality of life. So don't wait. It doesn't make any sense to wait. You could be suffering with things that you don't have to suffer with. You could be experiencing things that you don't even know are abnormal, but that could be treated now before they become issues later.
Absolutely. I mean, my perfect world, if I ran the world, girls would learn how to chart, 12, 13, whenever they're getting their periods, 10, whatever that range is, somewhere in there, they'd learn to chart right away and be able to just kind of see like, okay, great. I'm in a normal range. My body's just figuring it out right now because there is that period of time. Could be up to 6 years, not going to be always standard. Or like, okay, no, this is different. There's something that I need to go to a doctor for. Right. That would be my perfect world.
Yeah. And that's another really good point too, because I had one client, she was in her 20s, young, otherwise perfectly healthy. She was charting, we saw some abnormal bleeding and we're like, it's abnormal. We need to get it checked out. So she went to the doctor. It ended up being cervical cancer in her 20s. But it was caught so early that it was able to be treated. And she since has had 2 normal vaginal deliveries, normal pregnancies, vaginal deliveries, no problems whatsoever because it was caught very early. And that's the thing. Women who are charting, you do identify differences or when something's different very quickly and can seek treatment much more quickly, which gives you much better treatment results.
Oh my gosh. If that is not like a banner statement for learning how to chart right now, if you are not already charting, just rewind 30 seconds and listen to that over again.
There's no downside really to learning how to chart early.
Oh, yes. Okay. That is fabulous, Julie. I'm going to totally steal that line. There is no downside. There's literally no downside to
No.
learning to chart early. That's fabulous. Oh my gosh. Oh, Julie, this has been such a fruitful conversation. This is awesome. Did you have anything else you wanted to add before we just kind of wrap up on charting before and after getting married?
Yeah, I think just encourage couples and women out there to, again, yeah, seek out someone, find the right method for you, but find something. It helps so much to have someone who you can talk about, maybe, on occasion, maybe embarrassing things or things you don't
Yeah.
feel comfortable speaking to your average, maybe your mom or your sister about, just to have a resource, have a safe place where you can bring up these questions, where you can ask, what do I do about this? This is what I'm experiencing. Just even like just the normal frustrations about, using a natural method of family planning for your method of family planning. And, just having a resource, having someone to walk that path with you, to normalize the struggle, and just to support one another.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, that's fabulous. And I mean, I'm just thinking like how fun would it be to go with your best friend and go like take a class together? Like if you're in, high school or college and you're like, okay, well, I don't have a husband yet. I don't have a fiance yet, but I want to learn. And then you can have someone to talk to about it, beyond beyond the instructor, but just someone who speaks the same language as you.
It's true. Yeah. I've taught my nieces, I taught them together, and, they had a lot of fun with it. Honestly, they were some of my best clients. They were so on top of it.
That's
These
fabulous.
little 14, 15-year-old girls, and they were all over it.
Oh my
They
gosh.
took it so seriously.
I mean, and that point of our life, not to just like keep rambling on about this, but that point of your life, we are primed to learn. Like under 18, like your brain is learning so much constantly. And so, yeah, to be able to learn a method of fertility awareness, like at that time, it's really exciting. It's really cool. It's very empowering. Like it is.
Yes.
I would have loved to have that knowledge when I was 14, 15 in high school. Because I was even empowered, honestly, by the like app that I had that I put in when my period started, and then it would like estimate when my next one would come. And I was so empowered by that knowledge. But
yes.
Oh my gosh, how much more empowered would I have been if I had actually been charting my cervical mucus sign and being able to really predict with real confidence, not just a random algorithm.
And not only that, just the self-confidence and the respect for one's own body and how beautifully we're created, and to have respect for that. And can you imagine? I wish as a young teenager, I would have had someone instill that in me, and, could have prevented some mistakes in my,
definitely.
some bad choices along the way. And, I've definitely have given talks in middle schools. I've done puberty talks. I've, talked with high school mother-daughter groups, and how wonderful just to open up that conversation between moms and daughters, because a lot of times they want to talk about it. They don't know how to broach that subject. Mm-hmm. They don't know how to make it normal or not feel awkward, but just to have someone facilitate that. And then that door's open. Then that line of communication is open. And that's always a good thing.
Absolutely. What a beautiful gift to give to young women, and especially that mother-daughter relationship. Yeah, because I think in my personal experience, that line of communication didn't really open up until I became an instructor and just started talking about it all the time. And my poor
right.
mom's like, what in the world is going on with my daughter?
It's true.
And I'm in my late 20s at this point. Like I could have been talking to her about this a decade ago.
Right. But I mean, that's the sad thing though. A lot of times our moms were not well educated. They do not know anything about their bodies or how they run or, and just me, like I said, speaking with older women who are still menstruating, but kind of at the tail end of their fertile years, they're just astounded. They can't believe, how is it that I've gone my entire life and no one has told me this, no doctor, no other woman, like, because they don't know.
Right.
That's the problem.
And we sit down in like sex ed classes when we're, 13, 14, and they're like, no sex is safe sex. You're always fertile. And it's like, no, you're not.
You're not. No. And then that's another problem why, there's this whole, women are just terrified that they could get pregnant at any moment.
Yeah.
So they resort to not so healthy choices, with oral contraceptive pills and other chemicals and things like that, that aren't great for their health, have their whole host, own host of list of side effects. And, if it can all be managed so easily if you just know a few simple facts.
Oh my gosh. And just, basic, it really is basic biology.
It is.
It's not complicated. It can be difficult to learn. It can be difficult to apply, but it's not complicated in a sense, in that kind of more scientific sense.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Well, Julie, this has been such a fun conversation. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing your experience. I'm really excited to share this episode.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for listening. Remember that you can follow Charting Toward Intimacy on Instagram, and please feel free to reach out to me there if you have questions, comments, or episode topic ideas. You can also reach out to me via email, and those links are in the show notes. Until next time.